Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Wilson Stribling. Welcome to another edition of At Issue, where we discuss and debate the issues facing the state of Mississippi and how these issues impact you. Tonight, Vietnam veterans. It's been more than 50 years since the United States pulled out of the Vietnam War. During 3 decades of American involvement in the conflict, Mississippi contributed mightily to supporting the war effort. Thousands of Mississippians in the armed forces went to Vietnam. 637 of them were killed. Some are still missing in action. 2 Mississippians were awarded the Congressional Medal of Honor. Army Captain Ed Freeman of Greene County flew 14 helicopter rescue missions under enemy fire to evacuate wounded soldiers. His story was told in the movie We Were Soldiers. Marine Lance Corporal Roy Wheat of Moselle threw himself on a mine to shield his fellow Marines from the explosion so they could be safe. A Navy ship bears his name. Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi trained more than 700 South Vietnamese fighter pilots. B-52s were stationed at Columbus Air Force Base and conducted bombing runs in Vietnam. The Meridian Naval Air Station hosted military personnel who were sent to the war, including the man at the bottom right of this photo. That's former Vietnam POW presidential candidate and current U.S. Senator from Arizona, John McCain. The Vietnam War also sparked protests in Mississippi and across the nation. MPB's Mark Rigsby recently discovered the Veterans Administration Medical Center in Jackson recognizes Vietnam vets in a special way. Some of the veterans spoke with us about their experience.
It's common to find Jackson VA Medical Center Director David Walker visiting Vietnam veterans in their rooms, awarding them a special pin thanking them for their service.
In 2012, President Obama created a commission to commemorate the 50th anniversary of the end of the Vietnam War. This pin was created as the way to honor Vietnam veterans and to also celebrate their family members. And so, as a Mississippi veteran myself, and as the senior executive that runs this hospital, it'd be an honor if I could pin you. Thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Warren Larry Thornton is from Georgia. He says Vietnam changed him.
Long story short, 35, 40 years, I just run away from God, okay?
I see.
That's the way I look at it. You know, I grew up in a backwoods Baptist church in Georgia. But when I hit Vietnam, it twisted everything I believed in.
I see.
All right, I still believe in God, but He ain't a good God.
I see.
He ain't no God I want to have nothing to do with.
I see.
So I go my own way.
He appreciates being recognized for his service in Vietnam.
I appreciate being acknowledged that I exist, you know. You don't know how many years we were just forgotten, kicked to the curb.
Well, sir, it means a great deal to me. And all the Vietnam veterans, I think it would mean everything to them. I only don't accept this just for me, but I accept him for every man or woman that went over there and fought in that fight. And I appreciate every last one of them. And I always will, and they're always dear to my heart. Like all the veterans are, from all the wars that we have, any conflicts.
Yes, sir.
Because we're all of the same blood.
Yes, sir.
Because when you're talking about that, you're talking about brothers and sisters that cannot ever be separated. And that's the way that I look upon this. And I'm just glad to be in a country that is free like we have. It don't mean that we're perfect, but we have something that was written and put on by God in this country. And I think that's what really keeps us all sustained in life.
Thank you for your service.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Appreciate this.
I know it's 50+ years overdue, but again, thank you for your service. Thank you for letting us take care of you.
Vietnam veteran Robert Larry Williams is from McGee.
I started off in Da Nang, Vietnam, on Mike 8 boats down there. We were there hauling supplies and all from and around in the Da Nang harbor and out from there on supply boats. And then we had been trained before then by the Marines. Because when we went to Coronado, they came got us over there one evening, carried us up to Camp Pendleton, and it sent us through hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that. And that's one thing that I have a soft spot in my heart for the Marine Corps for doing this to us, because they taught us, not that the Navy didn't train us good, they did, but they taught us hand-to-hand combat and things that we needed in that country.
Okay.
And we went over there and we left Da Nang. They sent us up to Qua Viet Dong Ha. That's a river up in there, just below the DMZ is where we were on up in there. And we worked through there and down through Hue.
Okay.
And we hauled Marines and supplies and stuff for a while, and then they come and outfitted our boats with 50 caliber machine guns. And they put me on the stern gun of that boat. And the others had different ones that they were using in there. And we would go on operation with them, carrying them up the river and stuff at night and picking them up and bringing them back. And we were mostly the task force that carried them into the rivers and dropped them off and brought them back out of there.
Okay.
And that's what I did for the whole time I was over there in Vietnam.
Bobby Monroe is a Vietnam veteran from Crystal Springs.
When I was in Vietnam, I was over for 5 months.
Okay.
My wife was expecting her first baby. And I come home in March, and she had the baby in April.
Okay.
And my job over there was just mostly working for a supply office.
Okay.
And I was under a lieutenant captain and about 5 different company commanders.
Okay.
And I just transported them back and forth to the airport and where they needed to go.
Okay.
And that was my job.
Okay.
And just trying to stay out of, trying to stay ducked and head down, keep getting hit.
Okay. So I certainly can understand that.
But it was a blessing. I mean, I learned a lot.
Okay.
I learned a lot. I mean, you learn to appreciate things. You see so much over there. And little kids are starving to death and running for food. You know, you don't see that here in America.
I see.
And so that means a lot to see people. It makes you appreciate things. It really does. It makes you appreciate home. And I was never so glad to be back home and I've ever been in my life.
Okay.
But I did appreciate going over there and being over there because I learned a lot. I learned to appreciate the people, the soldiers. I learned to appreciate them.
Okay.
We got closer to each other.
The director of the VA hospital in Jackson, David Walker, is here with us. He will talk with us more about the pinning ceremony and other veterans issues in a moment. First, we want to show you 2 memorials to Vietnam veterans in Mississippi. There are 2 permanent memorials, one to the north and one to the south. The newer one is at Veterans Park in Tupelo. A half-sized replica of the Vietnam Veterans Wall in Washington, D.C. was dedicated earlier this month. The wall is inscribed with the names of those killed in Vietnam and missing in action. The other memorial is on the Gulf Coast. Mississippi's Vietnam Veterans Memorial is in Ocean Springs, and it was dedicated in 1997. We recently spoke with a Vietnam veteran who lives in Leake County, Mississippi, about his war experience. This is Johnny Lee Latham in his own words.
I was on an old helicopter, and we were going to a little assault helicopter base at Phu Loy, and we were on our way up there, and the engine stopped. And so we're coming down between the trees, and they're about 40 foot apart, and the trees are probably 20, 30 feet high at the most. And so as we're coming down, the chopper blade hit a tree, and of course it just went off into space, and we slammed into the earth, and it threw me out of the plane. And I couldn't get my breath, you know, and I was sitting there trying to breathe. And so got picked up, and I didn't realize I was so bad off until the next day. And it jammed all the stuff up in my neck, and I had a big old gouge out of my chest, and so I couldn't hardly go. So anyway, they sent me back down to Cameron and put me in the hospital there, and I went to Tachikawa Air Force Base in Japan, and then all the way back to the States in stages. And then, and I always remember when we came into Travis Air Force Base on that plane that was a medevac plane. It was called a Nightingale. Anyway, when we come out the gate, you should see what happened. There was all lined on both sides of the roads. There was people giving us the finger, and and we were baby killers and everything else. And they gave me a new uniform to send me home in. And the first thing I did is I went to the PX and bought me some civilian clothes and got out of that uniform, put it in my bag, and then I went home from there. And but I tell you, that just done me in after you've seen what had happened to so many people. And you know, and I'd seen guys that hadn't even started to shave yet, and they got killed, you know, and so when that just done me in. And so I came back through and live in my little pea patch out in the middle of the woods, and so that does me just fine.
Joining us now is Dr. David Walker. He's the director of the GV Sonny Montgomery VA Medical Center in Jackson. Dr. Walker is a veteran of the United States Air Force. He is from Vicksburg. Tammy Fowler is the Assistant Director of the Jackson Regional Benefit Office for the Veterans Benefits Administration. She's attended the University of New Orleans, the University of Alabama, and the Harvard Business School. She started working for the VA in 1986. She is from Louisville, and her father was in the Army for 20 years. We thank you both for joining us on At Issue. Good to have you here. David, let me start with you. How many veterans does the VA hospital in Jackson serve? And of those, how many are Vietnam veterans?
So we serve approximately 44,000 veterans, and we say in Jackson, that includes both here at the hospital in Jackson, and then we have 7 clinics throughout the state, and those are Macomb, Natchez, Hattiesburg, Meridian, Columbus, Kosciuszko, and Greenville. So throughout that whole catchment area, it's about 44,000, and almost 40% of those are Vietnam veterans, and it's the largest group that we serve.
Vietnam veterans is the largest group.
That's correct.
In the state of Mississippi. Is that typical for veterans associations and groups around the country, that the largest chunk would be from Vietnam?
That is what the VA is seeing, yes.
Mm-hmm. What types of services and resources does the hospital provide?
So we're a tertiary care hospital, so we offer emergency care, inpatient care, both for medicine and surgery. We have all the medical subspecialties and the surgical subspecialties. We also offer mental health. In addition, substance abuse treatment. And if we don't have the service and the veteran needs it, then we will see that they get it in the community. An example, if somebody comes for trauma, we would send them to a trauma center.
And are all those services provided at no cost to these veterans, at reduced cost, or what?
So the cost that a veteran has is dependent upon the category they're in, and there are multiple categories, all set by law. And so some veterans have no cost, and others have really minimal costs.
So what types of health challenges do Vietnam veterans specifically face? Things from their injuries, their conditions, their age. What do you see specifically among the Vietnam veterans?
So if we look at the Vietnam veterans, they are in their late 60s to 80 years of age. Mm-hmm. And so the things that you see in individuals that age, we see. So they typically have more than one medical condition, heart disease such as hypertension, stroke. We also see a significant amount of diabetes. And those are the things that you see as individuals age. And they also have PTSD or mental health conditions and substance abuse, but the medical conditions due to their age is the most common.
David, are there any specific illnesses or conditions you look for among Vietnam veterans?
Yes, hepatitis C. It's been shown that in baby boomers, in which you find that most Vietnam veterans are baby boomers, that it's the highest rate of hepatitis C. And an individual can go years without symptoms, so they won't know it unless they're tested. And we now have medications that are over 90% curative. And they're as simple sometimes as 1 pill a day for 8 to 12 weeks. And so that's a specific population we're targeting to get tested, because we have the medicines to treat it.
The number of patients, of veterans that you have seeking services at the VA is shrinking. Why is that, and what do you do about that?
So we're not sure why. We've gone from about 45,000 now to 44 to 43,000, and we've been doing outreach, and we're not sure. One is the age. They're aging. But the newer veterans are not signing up like previous generations. And so the outreach efforts to date just haven't been successful. And there are thousands of veterans in Mississippi eligible for care, but they haven't signed up. And many times when I talk to one, they'll say they want to save a spot for somebody that's more needy. And the reality is, if we continue to shrink, we may not exist in the manner we're in now. And so it's critical for us to grow.
Is this a phenomenon you're seeing only among new veterans or even Vietnam veterans in that era?
So we're seeing it total at our facility. Not every VA is shrinking. Those VAs that are near large bases tend to be growing somewhat, but we are not growing.
Talk about the special way that you recognize Vietnam veterans specifically at the VA.
So in 2012, the President had created an executive order to thank Vietnam War veterans. And by that I mean veterans that served from 1955 to 1975. And there's a special pin for them. And I will go to the bedside and thank them for their service, and then do a pinning on their chest as if you pin a medal, and officially thank them for their service. And if there are family members there, of course, thank the family members, because we know there are approximately 7 million Vietnam veterans and 9 million family members still living. And this is to acknowledge all of them.
And what kind of response do you get from this very personal interaction with these folks?
Many times I'm told that it's the first time they've been formally thanked. And it's not uncommon for me to see individuals tear up and begin to cry, especially family members too. And I can tell you that it's a very special moment for the veterans. And when you ask them, they'll tell you what it means to them.
And what about for you?
It's very special for me because I've served from 1987 to 2003. And so as a Mississippi veteran and someone with the privilege of being able to run the medical center, it's an honor for me too.
Very good. Tammy, let me move to you now. What types of benefits does the Veterans Benefits Administration provide?
Well, we have several types of benefits. One being, of course, the disability compensation for those veterans that have actually served in the military and that were injured in the military or received some type of injury or maybe a presumptive condition that occurred, so many years after. We also have pension benefits for some of our veterans that are low income. We also have home loan guarantee benefits. We also have vocational rehabilitation and employment benefits that we offer to our veterans here in the great state of Mississippi. And, with them, they just need to be 10% service connected or more with a disability with the employment, that impacts employment. And with that, we can go in and help them, evaluate them to provide them training, any type of education to help them to get employed here in the state of Mississippi.
So it sounds like the qualifications are pretty basic. Do you find, like David said, that some people are surprised that they qualify or perhaps reluctant to take advantage of the benefits that are available to them?
I think it's both. I think it's surprise because of not being, having the knowledge that they need or having the information that they need. And that's one of the reasons why David and our group get together. In fact, we have somebody in Meridian, Mississippi today, a group, doing outreach to those veterans in that county along with several other counties. But I too have come across veterans that have also said, it's like, well, I don't want to take the place of another veteran, and it's like my response to them is the day that you signed up to fight for my freedom is the day that you became entitled to those benefits. So once we tell them that and say, you're not taking a benefit out of anybody else's pocket, this is a benefit that you've been entitled to, then it kind of changes their mindset and we get them to apply.
How many Vietnam veterans in Mississippi are currently receiving benefits?
Right now we have about 219,000 veterans in the state of Mississippi, and about 59,000 of those are actually Vietnam veterans. Probably about 30 to 40% of those are actually receiving their benefits that they're entitled to. So we are looking to increase that through our outreach. We've already done over 30 outreach events increased just since October of last year. I know in November we'll have an outreach at the VFW Hall and Mendenhall. I believe that's on November 21st, and then we have another one at the VA Medical Center with Dr. Walker and his team as well. I think it's December 6th.
And when you say outreach, you're talking about educating folks about, hey, we're here, this is available to you, and here's how you can take advantage of it?
It's not even just educating, but we also send a team out there to help get them signed up for VA Medical Center treatment at the hospital, and I also have a team there to actually assist with the claims and check on the status of claims.
In terms of benefits, what's the typical dollar amount that a veteran receives after qualifying?
Typically with our evaluations from 10% to 100%, 10% can be a little over $100.
$100 a month, you told me?
$100 a month. And the 100% could be anywhere from $4,000 to $5,000 a month, based on the level of disability, especially with our veterans that are severely disabled that might be in a nursing home. The one thing that a lot of veterans don't realize is that the benefits that they receive from VA, they're not taxable income.
And some believe perhaps that they are and don't want to pay the taxes and might be reluctant to take advantage for that reason.
Yes.
What are some of the other challenges that your agency has with providing benefits to those who are qualified for them?
I think one of our biggest challenges, we've spent the last few years modernizing the way that we process claims, which has been a huge development in how we've been able to decrease our backlog. So with that, we've come from modernization where we process our claims electronically. So even though the veteran may be in Mississippi, we can actually work the claim anywhere across the United States in any of our 56 regional offices. So if that veteran's the next claim to be worked in our queue, it can be worked anywhere. We love working our own Mississippi veteran claims, and with that, the challenge is the resources. We have more veterans that are aging, we have more veterans that are being discharged, and with that comes the claims, which comes the increase of the responsibility of processing those claims. And of course, when Congress also passes any type of new laws, like we recently processed the Camp Lejeune types of presumptive disabilities, being infected by some of the waters there during a certain period of time, that increases our claims. And so looking to have the resources to continue processing those claims, just like Dr. Walker needs those resources to treat our veterans in a timely fashion.
You talked about the claims. Tell us about the appeals process and how that affects your overall ability to care for these folks.
All right. With the appeals process, the veteran can come in and actually appeal from whether we denied service connection for a benefit, whether they disagree with the level of disability percentage that we provided, or even an effective date. So there is an appeals process that they can go to in a time period that they have to provide that appeal. There is an appeals backlog, and one of the things that we're looking at with Secretary Shulkin is actually modernizing, the appeals process as well, to where we can reduce the timeliness and reduce that backlog.
And get that taken care of and get people on their way.
Absolutely.
What do veterans need to do to apply for benefits? If you're on the fence about this and are convinced maybe it's time to go ahead and look into this, what should a person do?
Well, there's several opportunities that the veteran can actually apply. One is actually we have county service officers in each of the counties, of the 82 counties here in the great state of Mississippi, that they can reach out to. They can also come in here to the VA regional office at 1600 East Woodrow Wilson Avenue. Our public contact representatives are available from 8 to 4 every day and happy to help these veterans. They can also, if they haven't applied for e-benefits, it's a way that you can actually sign up and be able to file claims, view where your claim is in the process. So they can go to ebenefits.gov. They can also call our national call centers, which is the 1-800-827-1000 number. And there's also a way that we can fax claims as well as to the intake center as well. So there's several opportunities that they can file.
To at least start the conversation.
Absolutely.
And you never know where that might lead. And likewise, David, if someone is interested in treatment at the VA Medical Center, what should be their first step?
So they can actually just walk in. They could also go to vets.gov, which is another website that actually you can go for healthcare benefits, other types of claim information, to get you pointed in the right direction. You can walk into one of our clinics. We call them C-Box, but our clinics throughout the state, and they'll get you in the right direction. And if someone has never been in our system, the DD 214 is a form that every veteran will recognize that form, and it's the form you get upon discharge that talks about your eligibility. And so all they have to do is come in. We also now, even for veterans that were discharged other than honorable, we can actually provide emergency mental health care. And the reason the Secretary has authorized us to do this is 20 veterans a day suicide, and 12 of those are not in the VA healthcare system. And so it's a way to try to reach individuals that would not be in the system. And so even other than honorable can come in. They may not be eligible for certain medical treatments, but for emergency mental health care, they can. And so coming into the system, coming into our ED, walking into our building for eligibility, or going to the website.
From a medical standpoint, you could use more doctors and nurses, could you not?
Correct. Primary care is where I am suffering the most, because we are recruiting for the same primary care physicians that every healthcare system is going after. And so if a primary care physician is out there and would like to come work for the VA, I would love to talk with them. And we offer a very competitive employment options for physicians and also nurses. We're a hospital. And so we have a need for 24-hour nursing care. And so we also are always in the need for nurses.
Dr. David Walker, Director of the G.V. Sonny Montgomery VA Medical Center in Jackson, thank you. And Tammy Fowler, Assistant Director of the Jackson Regional Benefit Office for the Veterans Benefits Administration. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
We are out of time. Don't forget you can check out the program on our website, mpbonline.org/issue. And we invite you to join us again next Friday night here on MPB for another edition of At Issue. Good night.